And the most important thing is being that person before your outside circumstances tell you that that's who you are. And we're off.
Yep, take two. We have a name.
I know, that's really exciting.
So we're calling this, big reveal, Hack and Tackle. So I'm the hack, and then providing the tackle of, as in, a bit risky, providing the ability to tackle all of the issues that we may have teed up in episode 1, Mr. Daniel Glyde.
Yeah, so I think for me, hack and tackle means that's what we're going to do with mental health, like mental strength, mental fitness. We're going to hack and tackle that as a subject. You know, there aren't any shortcuts in life, but there are some quite simple changes you can make to your life in order to build mental strength and fitness. Because, you know, like all the other aspects of our health, if we don't build strength and fitness, we get problems. Same with our physical health, same with our spiritual health. So, and I think because of the way mental health is often talked about, it's about managing symptoms all the time, isn't it? And that's it's often the same with our physical health, when actually it's about getting to root causes. So I think hack and tackle, that's what it means for me. We're getting to root causes. We're going to hack and tackle mental health so we can all learn together how to build better mental strength and mental fitness.
Yeah, and I think it's quite commendable. I've just actually realised this was accidental, but this is the cup that I am using today. Life is tough, but so are you. Which I think is, I've had a bit of really interesting personal news as well. I've found out I'm going to become a dad. But one of the reasons it's good, woohoo! I'm so excited. It's unbelievable.
Congratulations, mate. That's fabulous news.
My brain is simultaneously more organised and clear thinking than it's ever been, and then more scatterbrained than it's ever been. Like, so that paradox now exists. But what's interesting is, see, this morning, for the first time since I found out the news, I had a morning where I woke up and felt pretty glum. And I've cheered up since then, partly by virtue of speaking to yourself in the backstage area, and speaking to our producer, Rose, who's done great work on episode 1 and episode 2 that we're about to do. But it just goes to show, right, regardless of the circumstances in your life, regardless of what's happening, on any given day, you can feel shite. Oh, there's another thing. Episode 1, right? Daniel Glyde's swearing was gratuitous, right? And I decided that we're going to implement, and I'm the first person to pay the penalty today, we're going to implement a swear jar, right, from here on. And what we'll do is we'll start that. We'll just round it off to a £5 each, £10 for like episode 1, and now I owe £1 on top of that for episode 2, and we're going to make a donation to a mental health charity. I don't know, we'll do it periodically. We're not going to do it every week because that's whatever.
But we'd be open to having people nominate some good charities as well. You know, there are a few that spring to mind to me straight away, but I'd be happy to hear from our viewers and listeners to see who they'd like us to support in terms of a charity.
Right, I've got hang on, I'll grab it. I've got the Lemmy tile practice, right, printed out, and I have the tile itself, and I have it was bought in Portugal, so it's European plug, and I have the extender for it, and I have had this tile. We got back from our trip about 3 months ago, just before we had the happy news that we'd conceived, and I have used the tile a sum total of once.
So what is it you wanted to manifest, Hodgie? See, and this is the problem. You don't know.
So, no, I do to a point, but they're kind of, they feel sort of hot, kind of whitewashy answers. So one side of it is, because it's all quite trite, the best version of myself, my best self, right?
Yeah, but what does that look
Happiness. Truth. I've got my spark of ambition back that I had when I was a young guy again, and I think I want to manifest success in that while making sure that I'm fine.
The best version of you has spark and ambition. So spark and ambition. What else does the best version of you look like, Hodgie?
Right. like given recent developments, a great dad that manages to get the balance right between family stuff and self-fulfillment, if that doesn't sound like a selfish or entitled thing to say.
No, it doesn't. It's a very human thing to say. So, and what does that look like, that balance?
Being supportive to my partner Catherine, and obviously being as good a dad as my dad is. I think is the family portion of that. And then in terms of work, I think I know that I have the capability, right? So this kind of brings in another angle, and I don't want to deviate because we're quite nice focused here, right? But there is thinking that has got to come in from lateral areas. One of those is I always believe I've had the potential to do stuff that is financially remunerative to the point that does not become something that I'm chasing, that it just becomes something that is in my life in abundance, right? I also know that I will. Oh, sorry.
Another good word you've used. Go on, carry on.
Right. So in my life in abundance, in a way that it's not the chasing of it, right? Because I do understand, right? What I do understand, obviously, I've brushed around this area quite a lot, right? So another thing that I've gained is that the idea of, and I always use the connection of when I was a teenager, I wanted nothing more, right? I was acting, I was doing so many different things, but the thing I wanted most was to be the singer in a band. And I did it once, but I was never the singer in my band, right? And I believe that the reason that did not come to me in the gravitational forces of universal attraction was because I wanted it so much, right?
So you pushed it away.
I pushed it away by projecting want.
By chasing it, yeah. And all you get when you're in that place of wanting, all you're going to get is more wanting. Mm-hmm. So instead of being it, you want it.
Why is that? Why is it want creates more
it's the
want?
Natural laws of resonance and attraction. And you use some really good words in your description there of who you wanted to be. Fulfill, mm-hmm. Potential, abundance, and attraction. Right? So this is what we all want. We want to be fulfilled. We want a life of abundance where the things we desire come to us, right? And that word attracting. So in order to attract that, words, thoughts, actions in alignment. And the most important thing is being that person before your outside circumstances tell you that that's who you are.
Yes, because by living it, that's how you be it.
Yeah. And as we said earlier, Hodgie, we are human beings. We are not human doings. And this is where the problem becomes, because we're busy doing all the time and thinking and having. And this is why most of us aren't attracting the life in which we want, because we're probably busy wanting it rather than being it. We're doing things that we think that person ought to do because we should and we must and we ought to, not because it's our deepest desire and it's our passion and it's our motivation. And this is where we all get lost, because we're all busy identifying with our minds. There are three parts to our being. We are mind, body, soul. And as in humans in the 21st century, and particularly in our culture, we've all identified with our minds. We think that's who and what we are. Now, our conscious mind is discerning. It likes things and it doesn't like things. It wants things and it doesn't want things. And the problem is when you attach your identity to that, that's when you generate fear-based emotions, because the mind wants to keep us safe. So if we identify with our mind, there are things that happen to us that we think we don't want. And therefore, we get upset about them. We get depressed about them. And if they keep happening again and again and again, it drags us down and draws us down. And the trick is, like you said about Alan Watts there, and I'm currently reading for the 5th time Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now.
What a guy.
The trick is to identify as the witness of your thoughts and feelings, the observer of your thoughts and feelings, so that you don't become them. And that's really tricky to do, And it takes work, and it takes daily work. And step one is always awareness. It's being aware of when your mind, which has an agenda, is trying to discern. It will label, it will judge. Be aware of that. Understand that that's happening and what's happening and why it happens, and then choose something different.
Really interesting. So, on the being the witness, so the flashes of inspiration, right? The ideas you have that are sparked apropos of nothing but the greater consciousness shoving something in your head, right? Or into you, into the vessel that contains you. Do you have to be contemporaneous with those? So if you get a mad idea, should you contemporaneously act on that? Or should that be something where you can park it away and go, right, I'll store that to the right time?
No, act. Definitely act. Even if it's just one small, tiny step towards it. I mean, at the end of the day, right, anything that's meant for you will find you. And that's what I always think when I get those downloads, like when I'm out on a run or in the shower or walking the dog. An older version of me would have gone, right, shit, I need to write this down quick. Like this idea. The idea won't go anywhere. But in order to start building momentum and getting clarity around it, Hodgie, we need to take action. We need to get into doing, because that's where clarity will be found. Clarity will not be found up here. Now, once you've had that inspiration, the minute your mind gets involved, and if you don't get into action and start moving towards something and doing it, the mind is going to give you a million reasons why not to do it. It's going to present you with all these made up what ifs based on the past, based on what it took meaning as to what happened to us in the past. And if it thinks we're going to get rejected, we're going to look silly, it's going to start to give you reasons why not to do it. It's going to start to talk you out of it. It's going to behave like a lawyer and make a case for non-action, which is why so many wonderful ideas that we all have never see the light of day, because we end up in procrastination mode rather than, and the way of avoiding that procrastination mode is to start doing, even if it's just one little thing. Send an email, write the thing down, and then what I always say to my clients is you then continue to do one small thing every day to keep that momentum going. And what happens is that clarity is revealed in that momentum. You might start down a path and go, oh no, that's not quite it. So then you adjust slightly. You go, oh, no, that's not quite it. And then you'll feel the momentum take you towards what it is. And it'll feel easy. It won't be easy because everything takes hard work. You don't get success in anything without hard work and commitment and dedication. But that hard work and commitment and dedication won't feel difficult. You won't have to sit there and boot yourself up the backside and talk to yourself like you're an idiot to try and get into action, because you'll just desire it. You'll wake up every day and you'll be excited and enthusiastic about it, and you'll feel pulled towards it. If you're trying to force things, you're on the wrong path. That isn't it, right? If you're striving, if you're telling yourself I'm behind, that isn't the right thing. You need to then stop and go, well, hang on a minute. Why is my mind telling me I'm behind? Why am I trying to force this into happening? Because that's not the way that you manifest. You don't force things into being. They come into being as and when they're ready to come into being. And we do that by just taking that consistent small step daily action.
I think that's really interesting. I think the consistent small steps is something that I have definitely tried to implement in the past, but what happens with me is,
there's a problem, Hodgie, right there. What was the word you used there? Which means
try. Right.
Try is a get out of jail free card. Don't try. What's it Yoda said? You're a fan of Star Wars, Hodgie?
Yeah.
So Yoda said something like, we don't try, we do.
And I would, if I was playing, I don't know, Star Wars Pokemon cards with you, would say we don't do, we be. But yes,
the doing comes from the being. If we're trying, that's not coming from our being.
So let's take that, right? Let's take the being, right? So I have a good idea of all the doings that need to be done, right? I think that the bit that I probably need to put a bit more focus, maybe not necessarily focus, but maybe focus is part of that jigsaw. But I'm going to use the word focus for
what we focus on, we get more of, Hodgie. Where attention goes, energy flows. You know, time is our most precious resource, and we spend that with our focus and our attention.
So, on the time and the focus and the given to the being, right? If you know what the doing has to be, right, and you kind of are in a better flow with that than you ever have been, which I think I probably am. Right, I've got over the laziness and inertia that strikes from when mental health is really bad. But the thing is,
that's not laziness, though, Hodgie.
No, okay.
We often label it that. It is not laziness. Laziness is choosing not to do something because we can't be bothered, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas that little bit of depression or that where we just don't know what the step is to take, or we've burnt so much of our mental energy that we're fatigued. That's not laziness.
Mm. So I think we kind of did this last week, and the good thing is I think we put a pin in something and we've started down the road of doing that. I think next week the thing that I want to put a pin in for is talking about the being, right? Talking about the being independent of anything else. But this is where I'm going to go. So, by the way, I obviously admitted my kind of journalism career, your background's in the media as well. Yeah. So we're both similarly afflicted with that. But I'm going to go into journalism mode a wee bit because I want to ask you some questions.
Okay.
Just so that it's not feeling like this is all one way in any way. I wonder, right? You've obviously started in a place where you're probably a bit like I have been. I've probably evolved slightly from this, and you definitely further down that road. But where your brain just piles stuff up, and you're constantly sort of fighting that of the anxiety, excitement feeling that you kind of described earlier, but almost workaholic as a result of that sort of bubbling in your stomach and all your synapses.
Run it or fill the gaps on it. Yeah.
Right. So what I wonder is what was the eureka moment or the big breakthrough or the journey that you sent yourself down that started you? So if you're willing to share, if there was an event or something that gave you that clarity, and then also where you then took that to get to the point that you are now where you're actually helping other people to do some of the same things.
Yeah. So as you described there, that's what my mind used to be like. I used to run at 100 miles an hour, constant, just jumping from one thought to the next, 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 which is all past. Well, why did I do that? Why did I say that? How could that have been better? What should I have done? Who should I have spoken to? Or future. Oh, what if this happens? And what if that happens? And what if they say this? And what if they don't say this? And I would literally run imaginary conversations in my head. And that was my mind. I didn't sleep very well. I struggled to get off to sleep. I'd wake up in the middle of the night. My mind, ping, off it would go. So I was very rarely in the present moment. I was very rarely aware of what actually was going on around me. And I certainly didn't take the time to feel any joy. And I was busy trying to outrun this hole I felt, this void inside me of lack of fulfillment, meaning and purpose in my life. Now, I had a tremendous career, Hodgie. I basically got paid to watch sport. I worked for BBC Sport. I was a TV producer and director, and I worked in digital. It was fantastic, right? And I thought, this is my dream job. But it wasn't. It wasn't. It felt like it, but it wasn't. And this was the hole, right? This is why there was no meaning and purpose and fulfillment in my life, because that job was not fulfilling me. As wonderful as it was, and as much fun as it wasn't fulfilling me. Now, rather than stop and take the time to ask the question, is this really what I want? I kept barreling forward, Hodgie. And I would do anything and everything I could to escape and avoid that feeling, which was pretty much chronic anxiety and a lot of stress and occasional depression. So I would choose anything I could lay my hands on, right, to escape and avoid it. One of those things was work. And, I worked very hard, and I worked long hours, and sport broadcasting is unsociable hours as well. It's, sport all happens at evenings and weekends. And I'd work weeks on end without days off. And thinking all that stuff was going to help progress my career, which it didn't. Plus, I'm outrunning my own thoughts and feelings because I don't want to acknowledge them because I don't like them. And this is telling me, no, we don't want this. We don't like this. Now, what happened to me, there's two things, right? So start 2018, I burnt out. So I was mentally, emotionally, physically exhausted. Nothing left to give. I kept functioning though, Hodgie. I kept functioning. From the outside, you wouldn't necessarily have known it. I was still showed up to work every day. What I think they now call presenteeism. I was there, but I wasn't there. And yeah, one day after a shift, I was sat on my doorstep and I had a massive panic attack. Now, I didn't know at the time that's what was going on. I was hyperventilating. I felt my heart was going to jump out of my chest. I was sweating. My hands had gone cold and clammy. I thought I was having a heart attack, Hodgie, because I'd not experienced this before. So I'm there thinking to myself, right, I need to bring an ambulance because I don't want my wife and my son to walk down in the morning and find me dead on the doorstep. So I thought, right, a couple of deep breaths, mate. We'll get the phone. We'll ring 999. So I did the deep breaths. The thing subsided. I was like, oh, I'm okay. So literally Googled it. Anxiety attack. That's what had happened to me. And that's a very clear message from my body. Mate, you cannot carry on the way you are. And I know I've worked with, and I know a lot of people that those attacks on an almost daily basis, certainly on a weekly basis and quite regularly. But I've learned to manage the symptoms rather than deal with the root cause. There was something in me that wanted to know why that happened. And so that's when I began to delve into it. Now, another thing that happened right now, as I told you about how hard I worked, I became a people pleaser because I thought this is how I get ahead. I put my hand up for everything, every bit of overtime, every shift everybody else didn't want to do, the bits of work nobody else wanted to do. I put my hand up for it thinking that would get me ahead, right? Now, at BBC Sport, during the big events, you weren't allowed to book leave. Now, my wife and I had wanted to go to Amsterdam for years, and a couple of mates of ours said to us, right, we're going in February. Do you want to come along? Gave us the dates. My wife said, right, go and check those dates at work, make sure nothing's on. I thought I did. I said, yeah, no, we're good to go. Nothing on then. I put my holiday request in and it got approved. And it was smack bang in the middle of the 2018 Winter Olympics, which is a big no-no. Now, when my editor finally my boss realized that I'd booked this time off during the Winter Olympics, she came and spoke to me. She said, Dan, did you know? Because we'd both messed this up, right? She should never have approved it either. She said, Dan, did you realize you booked 4 days off right in the middle of the Winter Olympics? And I said, oh, no, I didn't realize. And she said, do you want it? Do you want to take it? And for the first time in my career, I chose my life.
Good.
I said, yes, I'm going to take it. I'd cancelled a holiday before, much to the chagrin of my wife, for the British Grand Prix. They wanted me to work on the interactive side of the British Grand Prix. So I sacked off my holiday to Cornwall and lost my 400 quid deposit. But this time I chose myself. I chose my life. And the funny thing was, right? So at this point, I was mentally very unwell, stuck up in my head, racing at 100 miles an hour. I had fatigue. I was overweight. I had bad skin. I couldn't sleep properly. Off I went to Amsterdam and I spent 4 days incredibly stoned. It's all I did from the minute I got there to the minute I left. Because my mate who we went out there with, he'd been before. So he knew where to go. So I literally just followed behind as they went about doing what they wanted to do.
Fantastic. Completely
and utterly out of my mind. And when I got back from Amsterdam, I felt better than I had done for years. Years. Up to that point, physically, I was starting to get really unwell as well. I'd had everything going, every sickness bug, every cold bug. For about 6 months, I was permanently unwell. I was constantly sniffling and sneezing. I just wasn't well. And coming back from Amsterdam, finally, I felt well for the first time ever. So you got those two events happen really close together. And that second one, it made me realize how much better it felt to say no to my career and to choose myself and my life and my relationships, but also to get out of this. So there are much healthier ways to do it than use cannabis, right? But it made me realize when I'd had that 4 days, oh my God, I need to get out of this. So this is when I started to explore healthier ways to do that. Things like breath work and cold water therapy and meditation and mindfulness. And this is where the journey started for me, Hodgie, because this is how over a period of years, I developed a process in which I healed myself. And not only did I heal myself and make myself better, I then began to excel at it. And then I realized the career wasn't for me. I left that, although the minute I stopped caring, my career took off. So when I decided I was going to leave, my career went through the roof, which was also taught me something about valuing myself, because I valued myself and my life so much more. Everybody in the department valued me more, and I got opportunities I'd been chasing, you know, like you were saying, chasing, pushing, striving. Never got them. They just came and landed in my lap because of who I was being.
I think there's a lot you could kind of take from that. I think one of the main things for me is when I hear that, and this isn't to blow smoke, but it's kind of, there's an element of inspirational to it, because I feel that I'm a wee bit younger than you, and I feel that there is genuine, and I think this is why we had it off before we even started this, right? Is there's genuine parallels in both the kind of dudes that we are, and also some of the, I'm not going to say mistakes, right? But some of the ways that, some of the decisions we made that led lives down a path, yes, a path of learning that allowed us to now recalibrate and be at a point where we can take that and apply it. And I can only applaud you for going down the route that you have in terms of the decision to like deploy what you did for yourself and then offer that to like a bigger group of people in a way that is completely in tune with how you see things, and with a sort of clarity. I mean, from a branding point of view, with a clarity of USP, but it's more like sincerity. It's more like an integrity to it, right?
Yeah.
And for me, that's kind of what I'm doing now. I'm at that pivot point. So my last job, so a bit like you, right? My whole career has been covered in sport, right? Probably more from a sort of microphone point of view, football commentator, all of that stuff. And for about 15 years, I worked in this industry, but 12 definitely, where I had all these jobs that people were like, oh, that's an amazing job. Oh, I wish I was doing that. Oh, you must love your work. And I'm like, aye. Like, because you don't want to be the guy that goes, oh, no, being a football commentator is not really me, because then you just sound conceited, right? And I still love being a football commentator. I love it again. See, now that it's not my definition of who I am, Hodge the commentator, right? I'm liking, and FIFA have made a few rule changes that have made football a bit more to my palate again in that World Cup there. World Cup was amazing. But now that I am not going, that is my identity, I feel that I'm much more enjoying the football commentary again. But similarly to you, I was striving around for what my job was. Then I got put in charge of a Formula One website, and I've no liked it since Murray Walker was giving it Spain like on the microphone back in the day. So it's go Damon Hill, my guy, right? Amazing. He came out like, he is my favorite commentator, and he came out with probably the best line I've ever heard, which was Damon Hill was in the 1997 Hungarian Grand Prix. He was the reigning world champion, went to a team called Arrows that were slow as a week in the jail, and he was in position to definitely podium finish, potentially win the Hungarian Grand Prix. And Murray Walker's clocked that Uko Katayama, the Japanese driver in the tail of the grid Minardi car, was going to hold him up potentially, right? And Uko Katayama moved aside so Damon Hill could glide past him. And he went, "You're a Japanese gentleman, Uko." And it's one of my favourite bits of commentary in history. Anyway, that love for the game, commentary-wise, had gone. And I get put in charge of this Formula One website thinking, right, I like the people that I'm working with. Like, I'm excited, a bit like one of these football speak things. I'm excited about the project, right? And I was. And I employed my own, it was the first time I've been put in charge of a team, and I deployed my own form of management, which was like people person, people oriented, right? And now that I'm sort of pivoting to the next stage of my career, everything is, I discovered doing that job what I enjoy, and that is helping people fulfill their potential, which you do in a different way, right? But it's helping people, right? And I've got a way that I can do that, and I'm now building arms business-wise that will allow me to explore that as well. So I think the interesting synergy for me comes in that there are so many parallels here that make this just a really interesting thing to talk about. Plus, also, I feel that this is it's a valuable thing for us to do for each other, for individually, and then hopefully for other people as we begin to explore some of these topics. And I think some really, really interesting stuff's come up this week. And I actually can't wait for the next one. But what I'm going to throw in at the end here is just evidence of your way of looking at it with a bit more time doing things in the being way, and then my way of looking at it with a bit
doing
less
things in the being way.
Yeah, exactly. And then my sort of, here's what we have to do, sort of mental glue that's stopping me doing stuff. When we were talking about doing this podcast, I was like, right, we're going to do it then. And should we do this? And should we do that? And you're like, let's just do it. Right, let's just do it. And it will lead us somewhere. And I'm like, I knew you were right, but my brain was going, no, but
like, that's what it does. But because we're trained that way, Hodgie. We're trained that everything has to be planned to the nth degree. There has to be reasons for doing this bit, because that's the corporate world we live in, where everything is about cost. And that's how we're trained. That's how we're trained at school. That's how we're then trained in the workforce. So our lives are full of all this stuff we think we have to, should, must, and ought to do, right? And those things, that is what causes us stress, right? You use two really good words in that last bit, summing up: integrity and identity. And these are two things that men need to have a look at in their life, right? Are you living in integrity? Are you being authentic to yourself, to your values, right? To what you think's important? Because if you're not, that's going to cause you problems with your mental health. That's where all of my problems came from, Hodgie. I was out of integrity. There I was. My identity was wrapped up as Dan Glyde, BBC Sport. So I sold my soul to the devil to try and get ahead in that industry and in that career, which I thought was me. So I'm busy doing things that I think I should do, I have to, I must, and I ought to, and I'm out of integrity. That's why I was constantly stressed, Hodgie, right? I think we touched on this last time. There's a reason we fail lie detector tests. Our bodies don't like it when we lie. So if we're permanently lying to ourselves, to the world, to everybody else, because we think we should, we must, and we have to, and we ought to, we're out of integrity and we're stressed. And when we're stressed, we can't think straight. Stress makes us stupid. And it becomes this vicious cycle. And this is why we end up clinically depressed, chronically anxious, and suffering with our mental health, because we're trying to be somebody we are not. We are performing a version of ourselves. We're caught in a gap between doing and being, between knowing and doing. When we get caught in that gap, that's when our mental health suffers.
No, and I think that the integrity, identity, being, and that trap you speak of, we'll come back to talk about next week, because I think there's so much more we could talk about all that stuff. Right. Yeah. I'm going to give us a wee game to finish. I think I've just thought of this, and this could go horribly wrong. But do you know what?
Because that would be fun.
Exactly. Right. So, do you want to, right, before I tell you what it is, do you want to go first or second?
First, leaders go first.
Exactly. I was going to go first, but I'll let you, because I deferred by asking the question. Right. So if we're signing off this podcast, we're going to try and come up with a sign-off line, something like my cup. You know, life is tough, but so are you. Thank you for listening to Hack and Tackle. Blah blah blah. Right. Come up with yours. I'll give you 5 seconds, and then you've got to go. Right. I'll count on the screen. For anyone listening to the audio form of this podcast, silence is about to present. So.
Live by design, not by default. Be intentional and deliberate with everything you do and everything you choose.
Thank you for listening to Hack and Tackle.